All
Hello,
right.
We are live. Hi, Kara.
Hello,
We
Britt,
have a special
Luca.
accompany today, dear Luca. Welcome, everyone. We are diving into our second podcast with Coffee and Cards. And Kara and I and Luca are very grateful to be coming to y'all. Please bear with me. I might be in a little bit of bounce for a little bit till we get fully settled here. Kara and I have had, as usual, some beautiful connecting calls over this previous week. Hard to believe it's only Wednesday. Hey, Kara.
I know.
And after connecting in with many of you, we've witnessed many cycles, many pattern repeats that we're all experiencing right now. And we're really looking forward to hopping on to this live call with you all today to dive into what's coming up for all of us,
What are we digging up?
including what are we digging up? So,
Yeah.
we talked a little bit in our previous podcast about the phantom lines, right, Kara?
Yeah. So can
And
you explain that again?
yeah, so phantom energetics, they are the subconscious operating systems, getting a little yawn now, that are still operating oftentimes without our awareness. So we can look at it as where we continue to repeat the same cycles and patterns. I like to say, oftentimes with different players, right, in our script of life or our play of life.
Right.
And we can look at our phantom lines as experiences that have transpired, oftentimes within the past, that have been left unresolved. There is maybe an emotion, a feeling that has not been fully processed, or there's some form of drain that keeps pulling us into that subconscious belief system or experience. And Kara and I were tuning into this earlier on in the week because we both witnessed where those cycle repeats were coming in for both of us. Oftentimes, like I just expressed, our subconscious operates from these spaces. And the more consciously aware we become of ourselves, we start to realize, well, shoot, I'm continuing to pick the same experiences, the same cycles, and it's not fulfilling me any longer. That a good explanation, Kara?
Yeah, totally. And I think that if I can riff off that a little bit, it's like when we start to feel like, like I feel like I've already like worked on this before. I feel like I've already seen this before. And it's like, yeah, we're going to keep hitting different layers and different aspects of ourselves as we are on this human life journey. And like you said, like it could be different actors in the play, which means like it could be different situations and people and experiences. But I think the thing that I noted myself this week was like, oh, I still have this old like operating belief system that's triggering this. So it's like, yeah, like I feel like I've moved through so much, but then it's like, oh, right, it's because I'm still looking at something, basically from like glass half empty rather than, remembering that I'm creating my reality, like literally. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, like, and I like the idea of phantom because like, I think that when you think of phantom, it's like you can kind of see it. Like it's not really prevalent, but it's there and it's sort of like on the sidelines. So it's, I think sometimes it takes so much diligence for us to stop if we are in a moment that feels uncomfortable and be like, okay, so basically what program am I running right now? What operating system, and where is this coming from?
Yes. It's like your shadow. It's there,
Right.
right? But until
Right.
you look at it, you don't see it.
Right. Yeah.
So,
So
and we
go
touched
ahead.
into the energetics of the life force drain. I'd love to touch into that as well,
Yeah.
right? Because when we're continuously drawing ourselves into energy of the past, and this is what we were touching upon, that means within ourself that the energetic experience, the situation, whatever those people are in the experience that we're replaying, in essence, it's not at peace because it's going to continue to bring you back in. There's a part of you calling you, asking you to be, to hear, to see, to witness what's still unsettled or fragmented within that part of self. And that is a closest affiliation with these phantom lines because they will continue to draw that life force back in until it's brought to peace or centered within the self.
Right. So how do you think, like, I know that that was something that you brought to my attention this week, and I'm trying to think like how we can make that into more of like a tangible example. Like if you have, would you say like memories, like if something keeps pulling you to like a past memory or a past situation that you haven't felt is resolved even though it is resolved, would you say that that makes sense?
So that was a beautiful question to inquire as we're addressing, coming into our center and witnessing what is still pulling us into those energetics of those phantom lines. So I always come to, if something keeps drawing you back into the past, is it left for resolve? If there's a space within yourself that, we're still processing the thoughts of what if, could have, should have, would have, right? Anything that draws us back in where we're repeating or replaying the story and maybe not in a space of contentment or peace with how we chose that experience,
Mm-hmm.
then it still is pulling that life force energy out of the field. It's still drawing the energy back. And I don't know if that, I feel like that applies for you too, in that awareness, right? For all of us.
100%. Yeah, 100%.
So, right. So it's important for us to decipher, what is pulling me back in, what's draining my life force into that experience. And just like you said, so beautifully put, it's again those onion layers where it's like, are we seriously back here again? Are we actually going back into this? I thought this was resolved. I thought this was at peace. And these phantom lines, they're showing us where things are still left unresolved.
Hmm. And would you, so I think that what you and I came to this week, which was actually a pretty big like aha moment for me, was like it's not so much that the situation is unresolved, it's the part of us that operated within that situation that is still unresolved. So
Yeah.
it's like for me, I was like, I mean, I was going back like 20 years at different things and like looking at stuff, and then it would lead me to something else and something else. And it was like this whole trail. I felt like I was like like following the crumbs. And I'm like,
Yeah.
why am I thinking of these people, these things that are like from so long ago, And then that's when I think you were like, well, what part of you is still operating from that? Like from that sort of time or experience. And then it's like, right, okay. So it's not so much, again, the external, it's the parts within us that we're still maybe operating like we were in those situations that is ready to be seen, to be like, okay, that's enough. And I mean, for me, that was all it took. I was like, oh, for God's sakes, okay, like no more. I want to complete, that part of myself because, and I mean, I think that there's different ways that we can complete those parts of ourselves, and we can even get into talking about that. But, really what it was is because it's like, if I'm creating my world, if life is being created through me and through this lens of operating system, then I'm going to, like you said, I'm going to keep repeating things, not just me, all of us. So it's like, where do I want to create from? Well, I want to create from new. I want to create from more expanded. I want to create from more open awareness and more present moment, as opposed to these versions that, we're operating from a wounded space. So,
Yes. And that's the power of presency. And that's what we really touched into as well. When we're confronted with these phantom lines, I'll call them, there's two choices in that present moment. There's, I'm going to let my energy continue to drain to that past experience, or I'm going to make the conscious choice in this present moment to step off that hamster wheel and rescript what that's going to look like for me in the life that I'm choosing to create. And we kept coming to that, like, what is my highest timeline, right? If we keep anchoring that into the presency, it's going to help shift what continues to draw back into the past.
right.
It's important to address what's drawing us back because you and I both know that if we just pretend things aren't there. Out of sight, out of mind. You can't bypass what needs to be confronted, what needs to be seen, what needs to be heard and witnessed. But you can listen to those parts of self, bring them into your presency, and then we choose to move forward together. Right.
Right.
So you're bringing that essence or that fragment of yourself back whole and centered.
Right. And as a little side note here, I do want to preface that what you just said is, in my mind, revolutionary, especially in like the spiritual community or the, like self-healing practices, because, I can think of so many times over the past 20 plus years, this whole like love and light, where it's like, basically, it's like, don't look at that, focus on the good, focus on the light. And I mean, of course, like we want to bring in gratitude, we want to focus on the positive things. And if we are avoiding that aspect of ourselves that is the phantom, the shadow, the unintegrated part of ourselves, like that part is just going to basically fester inside. So it's like you can't bypass this step. You can't pretend it's not there and just get on with life. You have to bring it in and be willing to look at it so that you can actually create from a new perspective and hop on to that highest, we're going to call it timeline, which really just means like a higher reality for you. Higher
Yeah.
meaning more joyful, more abundant, more prosperous, more loving, more accepting, all of these things, the good feels, as opposed to spiraling into the opposite of that.
The density.
Yeah.
I read a quote most recently. I love this. This ties in with what you're expressing, where it's like the universe doesn't respond to your affirmations, it responds to your frequency. So, in other words, you can continue to say, all is love and light. And absolutely, it can be. But if we're repressing, denying, in essence, even disrespecting shadow aspects of ourselves, they're just going to continue to get louder. What we resist persists. So, this is beautiful to be able to attune to positive outlooks and mantras, but this is again where it's like, are you truly hearing and witnessing yourself and what those parts of you are communicating? Catch God on a whisper, not a scream. You and I
Right.
both know that one. We've experienced the scream. So it's like your soul voice or that higher version of you, it's always communicating. It's whether we choose to listen.
Right. Yeah. And so, okay, let's get into like the practicalness then of, you know, like thinking about when we notice these aspects of ourselves that are playing out, um, more dense thoughts and creations. And we're seeing that in our external world. We're feeling that in our body.
Right.
Let's think about, and I'd love to hear your perspective, like what do we do in those moments? Like what, and like, I mean, I don't want to make it too complicated, but like, what's the easiest kind of way to shift from your perspective?
So I know for myself and with connecting with so many, it's feel the feels. So don't bypass the feelings. If you're angry, express it in a way that's directed with um, less harm, right? It's like we all have anger, for example, using that as an energetic, right? So it's how you choose to direct it. So whether that's through walking, whether that's through running, whether that's through kickboxing, whether that's through whatever that is for you, maybe that's a huge freaking scream, allowing that energy to move, because that's the most important piece. The energy has to move. You can't bypass it. It's how you choose to direct it. Right. So instead of, if it's a situation with a person, directing it in a harmful context, no, we're directing it in a way that it's releasing from the body, releasing from the field, then I can come back into my own clarity. So sometimes you have to have 18 screams. Sometimes it's one. Depending on what the experience is, right? You have to listen to your intuition and your body with that. And then once you come to that space of, I call it the clarity space, right? Your 0 point, there's a recognition like, okay, I've moved that coherence. I know where I'm feeling right now in myself. And how am I going to shift that? So that's
Right.
where for me, it'll be like, okay, I've moved through this. Now, how do I bring back in that joy? And oftentimes it's connecting with that part of myself and listening. Well, what do you need to come to that space of completion?
Right.
What is
Yeah.
the belief system that's operating that created this hamster wheel situation, and then working with those dominoes? So
Yeah.
I don't think it's like a straightforward answer in that way, but it's learning when you're starting to come into that clarity from clearing the charge. Does that
Right.
make sense?
Yeah, no, it totally does. And I think that like 100% that is all necessary and essential. And I just want to add to that too, because for me, my thing is like, remember to remember, like, because I
Mhm.
feel like I can have this like epiphany and I can see the things. And then I basically like fall asleep or forget again, you know? And it's like, okay, so how can I remember? Like, so what I did this week and what I've done in the past is like asking myself, like, what would be like, how can I stay awake and aware, essentially? How can I stay aware of my thought processes? So for me, and I think I was sharing this maybe last week about discernment, or, how I feel things in my body, right? So it's like, as soon as I start to like feel things in my body, like start to constrict, or as soon as I have this one thought that is about like, oh shit, how am I going to figure this out? Basically, which is constriction in my mind. It's like, okay, here it is again. So
Yes.
here's this underlying thought. So how can I, be aware that it's coming up, it's rising again, and then in that moment be like, okay, that thought is something that's my body is very used to experiencing in my mind, but I'm not choosing to do that anymore. So it's like, for me, I could visualize myself like looking behind me and then being like, no, and then turning around and looking the other way and then trying to replace it with like a new thought, and it takes practice. And I mean, it's like, it's just it to me, the piece that I was missing was like, how can I keep remembering this lesson? Like, please God, like, how can I make this easier on myself so I don't have to keep going through this like samsara, like wheel of suffering with this
Yes.
particular operating system, and shift it and be like, no. And so for me, it was like, that like panic of like, well, what's next? How am I going to figure shit out? How am I going to do this? How am I going to do this? It's like, that I'm never going to find the answer in that space. I need to like anchor in. I need to do what you said. Like, I need to feel this. Okay, fine. I need to come back to my 0 point or my clarity, my inner stability. And then, for me, it's like, I need to lean into faith. I need to lean into trust. I need to remember that everything has always worked out for me 100% of the time. Like, the
Always.
odds are in my favor, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
it's true.
but that's the piece for me that I feel like I get stuck on. It's like, oh yeah, great. Like, we've had this conversation how many times, B? And how many times I've been reminded. So learning how to remind myself, how to stay really aware and be like, oh, here's this trigger again. And let's remember what I did the last time that helped so I can keep doing it. And then I feel like the more we do that, the more we're instilling a new operating system because we're choosing different paths or trains of thought.
Yes, we're weaving those new paths and stepping off the wheel.
Right.
And I love that you touched into that, because I always come into that within myself, and this is a really powerful one. It's like, am I in my trigger or am I in my heart? Right?
Mm-hmm.
You're either from your soul's consciousness to your heart, or you're in your trigger. There's no in between. You're in it or you're not, right?
Yeah.
So if you're in the triggering space, and something that's worked really well for me, the Ho'oponopono Ono prayer. I'll
Right.
always come back in. So if, let's say, in the moment I'm super pissed off, something triggered me, I'll come in and I'll just keep repeating that internally in my heart. And it's so cool when you really start to witness yourself, because you'll witness the mind go back into like, oh, why didn't I say this? And then it's like, oh, wait, I'm going to come back in here. And then you see the mind go back out, right? And like, you'll literally witness the separation. It's
Yeah.
fascinating, right?
Yeah.
So when we can witness that, it's like, okay, I know that I'm not in a space right now to be in any form of clarity. I'm going to help get myself there. And that, in essence, is supporting yourself. It's holding yourself. You're putting yourself in that cave space to really redirect the energy. And the more that we attune to that, I know we've both noticed over time, those periods of the shift it becomes less and less, and it does become quicker because you're not stuck in it the same way that you once were. So it takes devotion,
Yeah.
it takes work, it takes recognition and awareness. And now that we are at those spaces of awareness, it's easier to create from a more heart-filled space.
Right. I agree. Things are definitely way faster than they used to be in this process. I know that there could have been times in my life where it would have been months that I could have been stuck in a loop. And now it's like a couple hours, or a few hours. Yeah. But I think, okay, so I think this is a good segue because when we talk about creating our reality, and I feel like, we hear that all the time. People say you create your own reality. It's like, yeah, whatever. But it's like, no, actually, we do create our own reality
Yeah.
by how we feel inside, right? So it's like whatever you see on the external is really like how you're feeling inside. So if it's always lack, if it's always like less than, if you're always missing out on something, it's like, okay, so it is actually just mechanics. It's just energetic physics and mechanics. It's just the way that it is. And we're on this human journey to learn how to basically become master creators of our own life so that we can bring in more joy and happiness and peace and community and aligned relationships and all of the things. And so I was kind of laughing because you and I were doing a Blue Lotus retreat in Sedona in
Yes.
October.
Yes.
And when we were like, you and I create things really quickly, like we come up with ideas fast, it gets down on paper really fast. And whoever threw out the name Sovereign Creator was like, okay, that's good, we'll do it. We wrote it down. And so, I mean, we do know this from every time that we've created a space, even though the retreat hasn't started yet, the retreat has started because we have already planned it and we've created it. So we already have this space open, which is all about becoming the sovereign creator. So, of course, all of the places within me, within you, within people that we're already working with, we're already emitting that. Like, so every place that I'm not being a sovereign creator is showing itself right now in the biggest way.
Yep.
So I
You nailed
feel
it.
like
I couldn't have said
it's
that
such
better.
a, I know it's so funny. And I mean, I know this too from anytime I've held a retreat on my own or we've held it together. It's like the minute we decide what the retreat theme is or what our intention is, it's like the work begins. And if anybody's watching that's already signed up for the retreat, you're probably already experiencing it as well. But basically, so let's just talk now that we're talking about that, like, let's just talk about what our intention is for this retreat and why we chose Sedona or why Sedona chose us essentially.
Well, we've both worked the grid points of Arizona and Sedona. So we know the very empowering coherence that Sedona offers. And I always love to come into that awareness. The desert energy is exposing, it's illuminating, and it lights things up from the inside out, which is beautiful because it is such a powerful coherence of alchemy and transformation if you choose it. And that's where, I've said this many times and I know you as well, like you don't come home the same. You don't, because what you go to experience and reconnect to within yourself comes home with you. Those parts of you come home with you and they integrate into a beautiful new foundational space of creation. And many of us over the last few years have had our foundations echoed. They've cleared in
Sure.
many degrees. And this retreat foundation is all about, well, where am I choosing to recreate this new
Right.
life from?
I love it.
And our workshops and practices and the ley line points that we're going to navigate these sisters to this pilgrimage, it's to help you generate practices that can help you continue to come into that sovereign creator within yourself. So we become very consciously aware of what we are creating in essence. So we want to alchemize all those subconscious energetics, beliefs, situations, experiences that are no longer in
Right.
alignment.
I
Yeah.
love it. And I want to also speak to the fact, okay, so we did a retreat together a few years ago. I mean, you and I've been to Sedona together a few times. The
Yeah.
last retreat we did there, I mean, the world was in a very different place at the time, energetically speaking.
Yes.
So it felt a little bit challenging when we were there. It was a little bit more confronting. But
Yeah.
I just came back from Sedona in March. And I have to say that everything, I mean, everything is softening really right now. And
Yes.
that the energy in the on the land in Sedona, yes, it's still very illuminating. It's
Yeah.
fire, which means that things move quickly.
Yes.
And there was also a certain amount of gentleness. So,
Mhm.
it's like there's no force. There's no like it's not like, when we say you're not going to come back the same, of course not, but in the best way possible,
Yes. Yes.
um, because you're going to be bringing back, like you said, more of yourself and your authentic self.
Yes.
And we're going to utilize the energy of the vortexes and the fire element of the desert to help us like shift, for lack of better words, like burn away the things that really have been holding all of us back, which are these outdated operating systems that we just keep looping in. So, yeah, we've called the retreat the Sovereign Creator because we want to, for ourselves, really anchor in this idea and remembrance, but also we want to be able to share like it's not impossible, it's not hard, it's very accessible, and it's all within you. So, you know to deepen that with the foundation of Blue Lotus, where it's like you're not here to seek, you're here to remember. Like you're here to remember that you are the creator, and we just want to open up that space to be able to help you see the things that are stopping you from creating the life that you absolutely fucking desire and love, excuse my
Yeah.
language, so that you can step
Yes.
into you know that highest timeline. And what is highest timeline? Again, it's doesn't mean you're moving to a different location or planet, although maybe some of you will, but like really what it means is like you're moving into something that's way better for you.
Yes.
Yeah.
And just like you said, the energy is exposing, but it's in the best way. It's hard to put it into words, right?
Yeah.
Like the feeling. And I always call it the energetics of the womb because it very much is. The womb space is the transformation. So we walk through that shedding and it's a very quickened rebirth. That's
Right.
how it processes. So I know for both of us going there and having retreats there together, going together, we witness how quick those shifts happen and with how much grace.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's just such a holding, supporting energy. Also, not to mention, the ancestral imprints that we connect to and we cross through, right?
Right.
Again, can't put that into words. It's something that you experience. So we really listen to those ley lines where we're being guided. And for many of us, we've walked these paths before.
Yeah.
So that bringing home whatever gift that is, it's very profound to witness. I know for myself, and I know for you, you witness those shifts for people who
Totally.
come home, right? Where it's like, even in their work, maybe they've stepped into something, a gift that they've had always within themselves, but have had a hard time listening to it.
Mhm.
So the clarity really comes through. This grid point has this just incredible frequency for illuminating that.
Yeah, I
And
agree.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
And I
like,
think
I already feel like I'm there.
I know me too. Every time we talk about it, I feel like both of us kind of like go off into like a different space in our minds. Anyway, yeah. So all that being said, I think that, really what we really wanted to touch in on this today is like make sure you're paying attention to where you're operating from. What
Mhm.
are your thoughts? What are these old patterns that, you know, are rearing up essentially right now at this time in particular? Because I mean, we didn't even really touch on this, but right now where we are in particular on our human journey evolution is a really potent time. There's a real
Mhm.
bifurcation, there's a real splitting of choices that we're coming into right now. And I know we touched upon that a little bit last week about like organic, versus non-organic, which really means love versus fear and like all of these things. So it feels like the fruit is really ripe right now to like make these shifts and changes. So for what it's worth for anybody, hopefully, there was some insight from this little coffee and cards chat today so that you can start to feel more empowered in your decisions. And certainly, if you have any questions, you can reach out to us, and happy always to chat it out or answer questions. And yeah, if anybody feels really called to come into the Blue Lotus Collective container, we'll make sure there's a link here too, because we have a lot of meditations, workshops, and tools on how to become that empowered creator. And we would love to have you and your heart join our container and collective, to really anchor in these beautiful sovereign codes back into life and the human journey and all of creation.
Well, and even our meditations every week, they coincide with what we're experiencing. So it's a very supportive container for the present
Yeah,
time with like-minded sisters and brothers,
I
which I
love.
think we all need to come back into that remembrance as well.
Yeah,
We're not walking the path
yeah,
alone.
exactly. Anyway, so shall we close the container
The
now that
portal
Luke is
closing.
sleeping nicely?
Yeah. Thank y'all for bearing with me in this beautiful rocking phase.
Yeah, it was very relaxing for me actually. The whole time I'm like, oh, I'm so relaxed.
It's the best too when you just find yourself rocking even when he's not, in
Yeah,
the swing.
exactly. Love it. Okay. Thanks, honey. We'll catch you next week for who knows what.
See what the next week has to offer, even though we're not even through this one.
I know. Okay. Deep breaths.
Okay.
Lots of love. Bye.
Lots of love. Bye bye.